My name is Josh Broltheim. I'm the training manager at Sumo Logic today. Not today, but for a long time now. And with me today, I actually have a helper. I should have had a slide up for Scott, but Scott Bauer is going to be assisting on the chat side of things. So during today's session, if there's any questions, like I said, feedback, comments, whatever, go ahead and put them in the chat and Scott will help address them. And if they're appropriate for the larger audience, we'll certainly bring them to the group. So Scott, you out there? Sorry to throw you on the spot there, but there he is.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, Scott Bauer. I've had a roaring 2 months here at Sumo. I'm loving the job, loving the company, loving the technology. I'm a technical marketing manager, so I got one foot on the marketing side of the aisle and the other foot on the engineering technical marketing or technical engineering side. Some kind of a weird hybrid. So please don't hold the marketing term against me. I am an engineer at heart. So there is no Q&A panels. It's all in the chat. So I'll do my best keeping track of what questions have been answered. But so the place to put the chats or put the questions is in the chat window.
Great. Thanks, Scott. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to turn off my video just to save a little bandwidth here. Otherwise, things get sluggish and it's not really that much fun. So, let's end that poll. So just to share those poll results with you. And I think you can see the results. Show results. There you go. You should be able to see them. So like I said, we have a mixture of people that have used Sumo for more than a year, which is well ahead of Scott, as well as people who have never used Sumo, which hopefully Scott is ahead of those individuals. So just joking, of course. But let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, my goal is to make this educational for everybody. I expect everybody to at least come away with something, newbies and users. So all right, let's get rid of that poll result. And let's go do some slides. And I guess front slide, well, welcome to Security Analytics Workshop. So Secure Inside Sumo Logic. And what we're going to be talking about, as the evidenced by the title, is essentially security within Sumo Logic. So how is Sumo Logic able to assist you with security? For our agenda today, we'll be sticking to this pretty closely. The introduction we're doing right now. I'm going to do a little bit of a security demo, which will just be a walkthrough of some of the dashboards that we'll actually be utilizing today and creating as well. So that will be good if you haven't seen Sumo, and even if you have, it's still a good demo. Question in there, will you be sharing the slides? Yes. After today, though. Yeah, we'll share them after. So we're going to do a security demo, which is I'm going to be walking you through that. So that will be you watching me. But then I want to get you into the system. I want you doing stuff with me because I don't want to do stuff on my own. I don't want to read slides to you for an hour. That's not fun for either one of us. So we're going to do 3 labs today that really encompass security within Sumo Logic. So they'll give you a really great overview of our query language and the resulting data and formatting of it that appears. So 3 labs are going to be in today's plans, and then we'll talk about next steps. So like I said, today meant to be interactive. Don't want to just read slides too. We will get you those slides. And as Scott properly pointed out, they will be posted to the Summit portal. That's right. Thank you for reminding me about that. So they'll be easily accessible after today. I think they go up tonight probably. All right, so this is our agenda. Sumo Logic, just as an overview. Now, many of you, do know Sumo Logic, and some of you may not. So I do want to kind of explain who we are. To give you kind of an overview. I sort of hope you've seen this slide before. Hopefully if you're introduced to Sumo Logic, but if not, this is a good kind of summary of who we are, what we do. As you know, one of the reasons you're here, digital transformation requires continuous intelligence, and businesses are leveraging this new category of software called continuous intelligence, sometimes referred to CI. Real-time analytics and insights from a single cloud-native platform across multiple use cases can help speed up decision-making and ultimately drive world-class decision-making as well. I guess it's 2 positives for decision-making. Using our analytics across operations, security, business, as well as global intelligence data provides you that continuous awareness that can help or improve the impact to your results. So for example, with operational intelligence, which we're not going to be focusing as much today, but Sumo is great with operational intelligence. If you want to know, are your systems up and running? What is your MTT and MTTR, those mean time to identify, mean time to resolves, those really critical metrics or indicators, really more critical every day in all industries. And other system health concerns all through operational intelligence. Security intelligence, which is where we're focusing today. Who is using root access? Is a person logging in from multiple locations simultaneously? And has your SIM picked it up? Other things like the business intelligence side of it. What pages are people frequently viewing on your website? What are they ordering? If you ran a marketing campaign, was it successful? And then even global intelligence. How are you or how is your organization doing compared to other companies, and observing that data in a worldwide focus, if you will. Using your data-driven intelligence, you are able to extract those real-time insights and business value from massive volumes of machine data that's being generated. And that's one of the key things here, is how much data is being generated. We're going to talk about that in more detail shortly, but logs are being created, metrics, events, metadata, traces, other telemetry, all well, pretty much these things that are in the your data row. These come from your apps, your microservices, your cloud systems, infrastructure, SaaS, mobile devices, third-party feeds, et cetera. The data just comes from everywhere. And we have built-in apps that are going to help provide you some immediate functionality that's going to provide and probably exceed 85% of your immediate query and analytic needs. So we'll look at those apps. I believe we look at the apps today. I sure hope we do, because they're pretty cool. And then our stack is also includes support for SaaS and third-party apps like Slack, web, and utilizing webhooks. You can interact with ServiceNow and Twitter and Discord and all these other communication properties. Our analytics feature multi-tenancy, which is very important. The information is very secure. We have advanced analytics and machine learning in the application, which is useful for things like plotting data on a map, which is, we're going to look at an example of that shortly. Actually do an example of that shortly. We're in the cloud, so we're elastic and we can scale the environment based on demand. We support APIs. And on the right-hand side of the screen, what I would like to point out here are our current security certifications and attestations. Those HIPAAs, those FedRAMPs, well, I mean, you see them right there, PCI. FedRAMP, as I just mentioned, being the one we got, I don't know, most recently, but fairly recently, which was a big deal. FedRAMP is always a big deal for organizations to get, and we're proud to display that. And then finally, your people. How do your people fit into all this? Well, it's so that you can achieve continuous collaboration across DevOps, engineering, IT, etc. And with those insights all coming from across multiple user cases and focusing or coming to a single source of truth to facilitate that collaborative thinking and speed decision-making. So that's where Sumo Logic can help you. Now, more specifically in Sumo Logic's world, are the security intelligence solutions. So in the previous slide, mentioned security intelligence, and now we're going to kind of zoom in on that. Within the security intelligence solutions, we have 3 of them. Actually, kind of more than 3, but 3 that we're going to kind of focus on today or describe. And on the left, we have audit and compliance. So what this is, there we go, got my little graphic there. Here we go. So when we're talking about audit and compliance, what we're talking about is that highly scalable and secure platform that can store all of your data, and as we discussed, backed by all those certifications, those attestations that are important for a client audit or compliance individual to be aware of. The data collection is scalable and ingested from on-prem and cloud platforms. We don't really talk about ingestion too much today, but that's important to note. And then using the compliance apps, and I alluded to the apps earlier, this is really going to help you experience a rapid time to value for your security audits. So we're not really going to focus on audit and compliance today. Sumo does it great, but that's not today's focus. Security analytics, however, is. When we're talking about security analytics, what we're talking about is where you build on the intelligence by performing things like deep searches using your data for correlation, which are required for analyzing those security event logs. Using pre-built dashboards, as well as apps that I've alluded to, but we haven't seen yet, to establish alerts for monitoring. And Sumo Logic provides all these advanced analytics for troubleshooting, such as integrated threat intelligence via our industry-leading CrowdStrike threat intel feed. We'll talk about what that specifically means in a few more minutes, but that's something that you'll have access to, and we'll use that. Other advanced analytics, things like detection and alerting on anomalies via outlier detection technology, which I'll show an example of an outlier. We won't look at it in the code, but I'll show you how it looks in the dashboards. Log reduce, log compare, all these great features that come under the advanced analytics kind of umbrella, which we'll look at. Like I said, we'll look at many of those today. Not enough time to do all of them. There's a lot in a good way, but we'll hit the good ones. And then finally, Cloud SIM. So what we're focusing on here, and this is not for today's conversation, but is security intelligence in our Cloud SIM. The Cloud SIM offers continuous threat correlation, going back weeks versus just hours across your on-prem, your cloud, your multi-cloud, hybrid cloud data sources. All that data can be viewed, once again, using our out-of-the-box content rules. The streamlined security analyst workflow, which is built by analysts for analysts with built-in event management to ensure collaboration and improve teams' efficiencies. And then finally, the SOC automation with our automated incident prioritization and alert triage that eliminates the noise and pain of alert fatigue. So as described, we're really focusing today on security analytics. And then to take security analytics and zoom in on that a little bit more, these are three of the areas that are covered in security analytics. So with security analytics is where you're going to use and create searches, which we'll look at and we will actually do pretty close, well, not that exact search I thought it was, but we'll do one very similar to that search on the left. And what it's going to do is go ahead and create some dashboards. We're going to apply those advanced search operators to give you that continuous intelligence across all your apps and infrastructure. The searches are going to be easily created to query your data, then create those dashboards, and then finally use those advanced analytics to apply to really detect, investigate, respond, look at anomalies, filter, even do some prediction. Once again, not enough time to do all of them by any means today, so we will pick a good handful that we have scheduled for you in the labs. All right, I'm going to keep going. Certainly any questions, keep Scott busy. But yeah, it looks like pretty quiet, so we'll keep rolling on here. And what I wanted to talk about here are apps. I've alluded to them many times, and hopefully you're aware of them, but they are a really cool feature within Sumo Logic. We have about 200 apps, and about half of them are for security usage. Yeah, probably close to that. And the apps help you get started by gaining insights from your data source by providing very simply example searches and dashboards for common use cases. So the great things about apps are, well, the bullet points really hit them. They're going to provide these dashboards and queries out of the box, easy to implement, giving you security analytics with threat intelligence by really just plugging and playing your data almost, not almost, by doing so. And then helping you set up those real-time monitoring alerts, which are typically critical to be notified that something is going wrong or going right within your environment. So alerts are of course important. And then specifically one app I wanted to point out, and we're going to play with this app later, is the Threat Intelligence Quick Analysis app. So what this app is going to allow you to do is, as it says right here, correlate CrowdStrike intelligence data with your own log data for those real-time security analytics. So it's going to allow your data to be scanned in many different ways, in this case, highlighting the threats based on IP, file name, URL, domain, etc. And then CrowdStrike is going to then tell you information about your data. Now, I've alluded to CrowdStrike a few times, and you may know who they are, you may not. Either is fine. They're not a household name, I guess, necessarily, depending on your household, I guess. Sumo Logic, we're experts at threat intelligence, logometrics, detection and analyzation, and all that cool stuff. That's our wheelhouse. CrowdStrike are experts at threat intelligence. So what they do, what their company does, is they basically monitor the web and see where threats start and see where they go and how they grow and how they die and how they spread and all those things related to threats and threat intelligence. Their data is great. Their data is actually quite expensive, and we utilize it and actually give it to you as part of some of the packages within Sumo Logic. So you have a great opportunity to use it, and we're going to use it today. So hopefully, like I said, you might be familiar with CrowdStrike. If you're not, that's fine, but you'll get to see how cool their data is and how well it works with Sumo Logic as well. So we're going to get into that just in a second. I thought I would do just a quick demo here. I don't want to, I want to get into the stuff, but I do want to show you some stuff too. So let me go ahead and pull up my my little demo here. And here we go. Cool. This is Sumo Logic. You may have not been in Sumo before. Many of you haven't used it before, so this might be your first introduction to Sumo. So welcome. And we'll go through it more specifically, some of the interface once we get into the lab. I'll do a better walkthrough of this system. But what I wanted to show right now is a dashboard made up of various panels. These panels are, as it says on top, associated with the security overview, specifically related to AWS data. And what this dashboard is showing us is various security overviews, if you will. So for example, just looking at these panels going from kind of top left to top right, what we see right here, let's see, and it's not expanding very well, but what we see here, and I hope, let me try one more time. I'd like to get you to see it. Yeah, well, that's okay. But what we see here is a worldwide map showing us SSO logins and locations from over the last 60 minutes. So in this case, we have a geographic reference, a map, and it's now showing us physically where in the world people logged in from. So from a security standpoint, this can be quite helpful. If you don't have any users based in South America or any, in this case it is users, but let's say you don't have any users in South America, and this map is showing you, well, 35 people or 35 accesses have occurred from South America in the last 60 minutes, this might be quite concerning. If you have an office in Brazil and Argentina, then this might make perfect sense. If you have no workers in South America, maybe it's concerning. Maybe somebody is just doing VPN testing and they're actually based in New York, but they're popping out of South America. Then there's an explanation for it. And this is where the data will reveal what's going on. And then you need to put on your kind of security hat, if you will, and make some decisions about, is this good? Is it not? Why is this explainable? Is it not? But we're actually going to look at an example of very similar to this one in the lab where we'll create a map. So I'm really kind of excited to show you that because the maps are, I'm going to say cool. I don't know if cool is the proper adjective, but to me, they are cool. So you'll get to experience those shortly. Another thing we see up here is threat intelligence related to SSO. So what's occurring here in this top middle panel is the system, specifically the data is being pushed through CrowdStrike. And what's being revealed is what we call a malicious confidence. How confident is CrowdStrike in the maliciousness of this, in this case, this SSO, these IP addresses? So what this is saying here is 103 of the IP addresses have a high malicious confidence, which is not really good. Conversely, 2 have a low malicious confidence, which is better. And so now what you can start to do is go through these IPs and see if you know where they originate from. But it's now starting to tell you some stuff is good, some stuff is bad, and now giving you more insight to start to dig into there. Another panel will do, well, actually I do a lab with this one as well, is this one on the top right, suspicious login distances. So what we have the ability to do, or the system does, and we're going to be able to take advantage of it shortly, is look at where somebody logged in from during a period of time. So in this case, we're looking at a 3-hour period. And what we're seeing is Damon here, he has logged in successfully from the United States and Egypt in a 3-hour time window. Now that is not physically possible. We can talk about it right now. I was going to wait for the lab, but that's not physically possible because, well, you can't get from US to Egypt in 3 hours. I guess maybe now with the new shuttle launch that Bezos is doing, you might be able to, but usually you can't do that. So the system is detecting, hey, I saw this login, I saw this other login, I know how far apart they are in the world, I know how fast somebody can travel, and that's not possible. And so that detection has been notified here. And we're going to look at how that is done in a few moments. It gets a little nerdy, but we'll look at how that occurs, how that calculation is done. Now, once again, Damon, if he is sitting in the US and is doing some VPN testing, then this might make perfect sense of why he appears to be popping out of Egypt. If he's not, then that might be concerning. If Damon is on vacation and is not even accessing his computers and his logins, and this occurs, no, now this might be more concerning. And so this, once again, dashboard is showing you what's going on. And then you need to use analytics and decide what to do with that. A couple more that I want to show here, and I don't want to get too bogged down in this demo because I want to start doing, but real quickly, not real quick, but sort of quick, the network traffic and data exfiltration. So what we're seeing here is what they say, but I wanted to focus on this VPC flow data volume outlier because I just wanted to show this, this outlier feature. What we see here is a gray line, and I'm trying to get my mouse out of the way, but we see this gray line in this VPC data flow. And you might know what VPC flow data is, you might not. Right now it's a metric, that's good enough. What we see is this gray line representing the metric for how many bytes are being flowing essentially for each minute. And then we see this brown kind of cloud, if you will. And I hope you can see that. What the brown cloud is representing, what the system is considering normal or not. So the system is looking at this gray line, the actual data, and using a bunch of math that's saying, okay, this is a range that I think is acceptable from X to Y. And the system is kind of recording that. But what we see here are these two pink triangles. And what the pink triangle is representing is a point where the system was expecting something in the brown cloud, and the value went outside that range. So the system's letting us know here and here, hey, these 2 points, these 2 moments in time, something abnormal happened. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean abnormal bad, although it usually does, but it does let you know and visually here that something has happened. And then you can go and figure out what and all that. But I wanted to show the outliers, at least visually, because it's really a great feature of Sumo. All right, let's get out of this demo. Let's not see. And of course, if there's questions, feel free to ask. But I just wanted to show this because it's we're going to kind of try and build some of these together. So let's start getting into that world. So let me go ahead and let's see here. Let me go ahead and sorry, being a little weird. Okay, so what we're going to do now is let me go back to the deck just to keep me honest here. Demo slide. Now we're going to get you into the system. So what we're going to do now is we're going to log in to Sumo Logic. I'm going to go ahead and put these credentials into the chat. And explain what we're going to do with these. So we're going to go into Sumo Logic. So we're going to go to service.sumologic.com. Some of you may have know how to get into Sumo. Some of you may not, and that's fine. That's why we have these instructions. And for today, we're going to use not necessarily a shared set of credentials. We want to use training credentials because I want to show you examples. I want to use data in our training environment, and so we want to get in there. The email to get into the training environment is going to be training plus analyst number. Now you are going to pick a 3-digit number, and you may have played this game with, not this game, but this with us earlier today or in other classes, but you're going to want to pick a 3-digit number. If you want to be 007, although I think that one's usually taken first, cool. Training plus analyst 321-684-925, pick a 3-digit number. And then that password is going to be security21 exclamation point. So capital SECURITY 21 exclamation point. So go ahead and log in. As well, you guys have done this before. As you're doing, or so many of you are, you're putting the number in the chat, which is great. That lets me know which number you're using. And if there's overlap, it's not a problem for today. We're a pretty small group, and we're not really doing anything.
Hey, Josh, just a real quick one here. When you do log in, you may see a kind of work in progress. You may see a lot of work, a lot of different dashboards, a lot of residue from earlier classes today. Usually we reset the whole rig. So when you come in, if it's a full-blown certification class, you're getting a spanking brand new one. But because these are workshops and today's been a packed day, don't get wrapped around the axle if you're seeing a bunch of different tabs in your environment when you log in. All right, just a heads up on that one.
Yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that, Scott. Great point. Yeah, and to continue that point, the other thing to point out about this is, as Scott alluded to, this is a shared training environment. So we're going to go in here, we're going to add stuff, we're going to create some chart, we're going to do some stuff, and you're welcome to use these for the rest of the month. Actually, these passwords will be good through the end of June. But however, somebody else can go in there. So don't put, save anything with a proprietary name or use any, really anything obvious that you wouldn't want anybody else to see. So that's a great point. So let me go ahead and log in here as well. Feel free to use these after as well. These credentials will be good for, like I said, the rest of the month. So once you log in, am I doing wrong?
Click on the eye. Click on the eye and the visibility. It's Security 21 Bank. Okay, so that was fine.
Oh wait, I'm at live. Hold on. I didn't go to service.sumologic.com like I told everyone else to do. All right, cool. So, and let me go ahead and clean this up. I apologize. I should have this a little more presentable. But this is the screen you should get when you first log in. And as Scott was alluding to, it may be messy. You may have some tabs up here that are already opened. You may have some stuff in your personal folder saved, and that's okay. It just means somebody may have used it before. And actually, let me go ahead and throw a poll question up here.
So while Josh is doing that, he did it really quickly. And if you were watching, you caught it. If you have a whole bunch of garbage on top, it's a big mess. On the right-hand side, you'll see 3 dots. Go down there and it says close all tabs. So if you want to just kind of flush it all away and get a nice clean new environment, click on that and close all tabs.
Absolutely. And there's one other thing. Looks like you guys are getting logged in, which is great. So I'm going to end that poll. And there's one other thing I need to share with you. Is a PDF, and if you can't view PDFs, that's okay. We have a workaround for that with today's content. Let's see, I believe it's this one. Okay, so I just put a PDF into the chat. And like I said, if you can't view a PDF, I'm going to go ahead and paste the content in as we go through each step so we're all together. So far we should be logged in. We should be on this front page. Like Scott alluded to, you can go ahead and close all tabs, but this is Sumo Logic in all its glory. So welcome. Now today we're going to go ahead and specifically do some labs, but what you can do from the front page is, start doing things. In fact, let me go through these tabs real fast. We have time, so I'll do it. The home tab is a home page, pretty self-descriptive, able to start doing things quickly, and we'll do a log search in a moment. Also access to things you've recently opened, recently run, etc. The Learn tab, great place to learn more about Sumo Logic. So in here we have labs, we have videos, we have cheat sheets, documentation, just all kinds of great resources. And they are great resources. A bit of companies where we have not had great resources. So I'm proud to claim these as our own. And then certification. So we offer a certification. Today you're taking a workshop, which is a 1-hour class, but we also have certifications that are 3-hour classes. Basically 2 hours of content and 1 hour set aside for an exam where you can actually get certified in Sumo Logic. So I'll probably plug that a little bit more when we get into the end, but just wanted to show you where it is in the environment. But now that we're in here, let's go ahead and take a look at the PDF. And let's go ahead and start to work on lab 1, or not work on, let me describe lab 1, but let's go ahead and pull it up together. So I'm also going to paste the text in for lab 1 into the chat as well. I think that will be helpful.
Yeah, so in one of the earlier classes, we had people typing in all the different stuff, and this is not a typing class or a typing workshop. We don't need to worry about that. So copy and paste is your friend. So as Josh pastes stuff into the chat, or if you go to the PDF, you can copy and paste directly in. So don't worry about typing. I'm a big fat fingerer and I always mess things up. And I love just to take out of the labs and move forward from there.
Cool, agreed. All right, so we're going to look at activity number 1 today, and we're going to be doing 3 activities. But the first one is going to be the one that I alluded to earlier, which is going to look at a user's logins from different IPs. So that's exactly what we're going to do. This query, as it says here, is going to help identify users that have logged in from more than one IP address over a period of time. As it says, this can be an indication that credentials have been leaked or phished. And this query is written for AWS, but it can very easily be written for any language, or excuse me, any log sources. So as Scott described properly, today's class really is not intended to be a query writing workshop. It's really to show you how these things work. We have classes for that. We have a search mastery class, and we do 2 hours of this stuff. So I encourage you to join that, but that's not the intention of today. So what I want to do very simply is I'm going to cut and paste the first query, this whole section in step 1 here, and paste it into the query window. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. I'm going to go into Sumo Logic. I'm either going to go back to the home page, or I'm going to go to this plus new sign and click on it and select the option for log search. And so what I want to get to is this screen. So either new log search, or actually just do that, new log search. You'll have a blank screen here, a blank query window right here. And what you're going to do is just paste all that text into that box right there. So it should look very similar to mine. If you have page breaks or spaces in between the lines, that's okay. The system will automatically kind of discard that or ignore that. But what we have in here is now a query. Now, slow down. We have a query, but let's go through what is this query doing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go line by line for this query. I think this is an effective teaching method. It is. I've seen good experience from this. So I'm going to go line by line. And what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to comment off a bunch of these lines, meaning I'm going to turn off a lot of these lines because I don't want to have them all run at the same time. So what I'm going to do, and this might be something that users of Sumo Logic don't know how to do. So this might be the first thing that people that are experienced learn, how to comment multiple lines off at the same time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first line, or the second line technically, and hold down Alt on my keyboard. And the mouse is going to turn the crosshairs. And when I do, I'm going to drag my mouse down with my finger on the Alt button. And when I let go, I'm going to have one long blinking line.
If you're on a Mac, it's the Option key.
Yep, correct. And then I'm going to do 2 slashes to represent commenting off. And so what I now have is something like this. I could also go to each line, do 2 backslashes, but I want to do it in a little bit, well, a better way, a cleaner way. So at this point, what you should have is hopefully like this. And also, if you either are not following along, although I do want everybody to follow along, of course, let us know if you're not. But if you just want to sit back and watch me drive, that's perfectly fine. Might even be a better use of your time. Totally up to you. But let's go through this line or this query line by line to show you what this is doing. How we have this AWS data. What can we do with the query with it? So let's go ahead and start. Let's start our journey here. So I'm going to run the first line. And the first line, what I'm doing is telling the system to look for a specific set of data in the form of what we call source categories. It's very simply just a label for data. And so an admin has labeled this data labs AWS CloudTrail. When I click start, I'm now looking for all the lab AWS CloudTrail, so all those log messages from the last 15 minutes. And in this case, I'm looking specifically for the keyword of console login as well. So down below, I see all my logs. I see 58 of them, not a million, but some logs. And for each log, I see the log, and then I see highlighted the event name of console login. The reason I'm saying just show me console logins here are because I just want to see where people have logged into the console. So in this way, I'm starting to filter my data. I'm saying here, take all my data or take a bunch of my data and just show me a subset of it. So now I have my data. I have 58 messages for the last 15 minutes. And here is each message. So message 1, message 2, message 3, etc. Now these messages have data in them, of course. And what we want to do is we want to parse that data out. We want to take that data and we want to give it a label so that we can then query that data later. So for example, and if I'm going too fast, please holler, of course. For example, here, and we'll actually use this. So for example, right here, here we have a source IP address. Right here, we have an IP address, and hopefully you recognize this as an IP address of number.number.number.number is an IP address. And we have a field right here. What we want to do is we want to tell the system that this is equal to a source IP address. And that's what we're going to do on the next series of lines. These next lines that say JSON in them, what we're going to do is we're going to parse this data out. By parsing it, we're now creating fields called source IP address, event name, event type. And what we can then do, and we will do, is then utilize those fields shortly. So what we're really doing with all of these JSON lines is saying, take a look at the data and turn it into fields, and then display those fields to me in the results below. So now I see not just the log message, but I see an ARN, and an ARN is like a username. I see the console login event name. I see the status of that console login. I see, what else do I see? I see an IP address and other stuff. So now the system knows what these things are. It knows what an IP address is or how to locate one. It knows what a console login is and how to identify it, which is great. So now we're starting to take our data, we're starting to filter it, and now we're going to filter it even further. The way we're going to filter this data is we're going to say, show us where the console login equals success. Because for this lab, we only want to see those places where somebody logged in successfully. In this case, we're not looking at brute force attacks. In this case, we're saying, show me where somebody successfully logged in multiple times. A brute force attack might just be attempts to log in. Now, we could modify this query to show all console logins successful or fails, but that's not the point of today's lab exercise. So what we now see when to run this where console login equals success is now we should see only those places where somebody is logged in successfully. Okay. And hopefully you agree with that and you see that. Now what we want to do is we want to start to take our data and aggregate it. We want to start to count our data. And that's what's going to occur right here. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to count. Count is an operator. It's a mathematical operator. It's not the most advanced operator in the world, but it's a pretty important one. When I run this line of count ARN, comma source IP address, what's going to occur is I'm going to get a new tab here called Aggregates. Let me prove it to you. What the Aggregates tab is going to show are for each ARN, which is essentially like the username, and each source IP address, it's going to count those uniqueness, those unique entries. So what we now see is over the last 15 minutes, B. Smith has logged in successfully from this IP address. He or she, I guess it could be Betty Smith, doesn't have to be Bruce Smith, but B. Smith has also logged in successfully in the last 15 minutes from this address, and this address, and this address, and etc. So now what we're seeing are those places where somebody has logged in successfully over the last 15 minutes. And that's great. That's good to see. Always good to see successful login. But that's not the goal of today's exercise. The goal is to see where somebody is logged in successfully concurrently or more than once. So what we now need to do is take this list and start to format it so that we only see those users that have logged in successfully more than once during a time period. And what we're going to do here, this is kind of advanced, but basically what we're going to do is start to clean up this data. This is really just formatting the data as results. But what we have with our data, like I said, just repeating it one more time, is we have for each successful login over the last 15 minutes, we have the user, we have the IP address, and just a count of one of how many times they logged in from that IP address. What we're going to do now is we're going to sort by ARN. We're going to sort by user. Now, Paul found this out or found something out about this. The data we have, this lab data, is there's going to be something not good about it. It's not that it's bad data, but there is going to be something that's doesn't really help us here. But I don't want to call it out entirely. Actually, I guess I will. The issue here is we only have data for B. Smith. So sorting by user is not really necessary, or sorting by ARN is not necessary. But what we do see here is, once again, that B. Smith has logged in 55 times over the past 15 minutes from different locations. What we're going to do now is continue the formatting of this data just to clean this up. What we're going to do with this line is we're going to say 1 as row number. What this line is going to do, and this is not typical Sumo query language. I mean, it is typical, but it's not the feature you use all the time. But what this is going to do is now create a column called row number and put a 1 in each row number. So what we now have are user IP addresses and row numbers with the number 1. Now, why did I just put number 1 in 55 different rows of data? The reason I did is what I'm going to do is now take these row numbers and add them up, total it by ARN. And when I do, this is now going to show me how many times somebody has logged in successfully over the last 15 minutes. So now what I see is specifically B. Smith has now logged in 55 times from these unique IP addresses over the last 15 minutes. I can clean this data up even a little bit more. What I can do is I can say only show me where the total is greater than 1, because I only want to see those places where users logged in more than once. So that's not really going to change my data. And then what I'm going to do with this final one is I'm going to say remove the count and the row number field. That's what this minus represents. Just remove these fields. And now what I get is showing me that B Smith has now logged in, and the time has changed, so the data has changed 53 times over the last 15 minutes. Now, once again, this does not necessarily mean that B Smith is a master hacker. His or her job might be to log in from VPNs around the world, might be to set up new IP addresses, or whatever they might be scheduled to do. Conversely, you might go to B Smith or B Smith's manager and say, hey, I see B Smith is logging in 53 times in 15 minutes. That's kind of weird. Is B Smith okay, or do they need help, or checking in? If the manager says, yeah, B Smith hasn't worked here in a month, then this is quite concerning. If the manager says, yeah, B Smith's job is VPN testing, then this makes perfect sense. And so this is where we can take the data and have it explained to us, and then we need to kind of digest it as well. So I know that was a lot for one exercise. Hopefully you're with us. I don't see many questions, so I'm going to assume you are. And if you're not, hanging out and watching is fine. But I want to go into the next part. And we are cramming a lot in here. I guess I should acknowledge that.
Jason, Josh, before we move on, you got to
please.
You got the geolocation portion of this.
Absolutely do. Yep.
Okay,
so,
sorry. I thought you were
no, keep me honest. I appreciate it. So now we do want to do the next portion of this lab, which is implementing geolocation. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to copy these 2 lines of text and paste them into our query that we've started already. So we're going to just continue with the query we have. I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to go ahead and comment those 2 lines off, just because I want to go through them line by line before I just throw them at you. I just want to show you what they do. So now we're back to square one, where I have my data from the lab part 1 that we just ran. And now we're going to go ahead and do part 2. So what we're going to do here now is create a map. And in order to create a map, we need to have geographic information. And we need to get that geographic information, in this case, from IP addresses. So how do we take an IP address and pinpoint a location on a map? How do we do that? Well, very simply, or not so simply, I guess depends how you look at it. It's an action that occurs all the time. So, for example, when you go to you go into your browser and you go to visit a sports page, and you get the local ads, and you get your local sports team and local weather, and those type of things. How does that work? What's happening is geolocation is taking place. Essentially, that IP address is being associated with a physical location in the world, and then being reported, being displayed. So we're going to go ahead and utilize that right now. And this first line here is going to utilize a lookup table. Now, I mentioned earlier that we are going to use the table and the data of CrowdStrike, and that's security data, and it's great data, and I explained it's valuable, and yay CrowdStrike. Well, we also have access to a company called Neustar. What Neustar does is they do geolocation. They constantly look at the internet and they see where somebody came from and physically where they are, and ties the two together. And so we're going to utilize that data in this query. What we're doing in this line, and this line reads easier if you go from right to left. What we're doing is we're saying, take the source IP address, this IP address, or that IP address, or that IP address, the IP addresses, and look at them or compare them to the IPs that exist within the geolocation data, that Neustar data, this data of geographic data. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And from that data, extract a latitude and a longitude. So now when I run this, for each IP address, what I should get is a latitude and a longitude. And if I don't get an IP address, that might just be because there's just no place to track it to. And this is lab data, test data, so some of it's kind of fake. We've probably made up some of these IPs. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take those latitudes and longitudes and count them up. So what I now have is, for my user, this B Smith guy or gal, we didn't specify gender, B Smith, he or she has logged in a bunch of times over the last 15 minutes. And these are those latitudes and longitudes. Now, latitudes and longitudes can be really helpful for you, and they might not be. If you're a cartographer, you know where latitude 38 minus 94 is. Most of us don't. And so what we can do is we can utilize the map icon right here. Very simply, we're just going to click on the map icon. And now all those latitudes and longitudes are now on a map. And now what we've created is a query that shows, over the last 15 minutes, This is where people have logged in multiple times from, but now we now see these physical entries or locations. And everybody loves a map. Easy to display, easy to create. You throw this on a dashboard, somebody walking by is going to say, oh, somebody's coming out from India, Malaysia, wherever, and very easy to identify. Or nobody's coming out of Australia. Should, why aren't we testing there? Or why isn't somebody selling from there? Or, whatever. This is going to show you all of that. So wanted to show it just because it's really simple. Not really simple, I take that back. It's quite complex, but to create the map is really simple. It was really just one line of code or two. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump into the next lab, but I do have a little quiz here, a kind of pop quiz. Just want to make sure we're paying attention still. So for activity 1, I'm going to launch that poll. So the poll is which command in this query creates the aggregation of data and the aggregate tab in the UI. So I'll go ahead and leave that up for you all to ponder over. And while you're answering that, we're going to start to roll into lab 2. So lab 2 is going to be utilizing threat intelligence lookup. I'm going to end the poll. Most of you got it right. The correct answer was the count ARN comma source IP address. And so that is the operator or a operator that does aggregation. So, and if you got it wrong, that's okay. All right, let's do activity 2. Let's see, we have activity 2. Yeah, we'll definitely get two done. So in activity 2, what we're going to do is we're going to utilize, like I just said, that CrowdStrike data. How does this data help us? Well, let's go ahead and look at an example. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the text of activity 2, this portion that starts on the first page and ends on the second. I'm going to copy it. As Scott pointed out, you may, if you're utilizing a PDF, it may pick up that confidential portion. So you'll just want to make sure that you rule that out or, just delete it. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to do a new log search and we're going to paste that new query in. And then I'm going to go ahead and comment off my lines again. And I'm going to pause and wait for you to join me. In fact, I'm also going to go ahead and put this query in the chat as well. It's part of the PDF, and I think I can't recall if I pasted this in earlier or not, but there it is. All right, so this portion is now doing, so let's go through this. Let's go exactly line by line. The first line you can kind of ignore, limit 1. We're just using this really more for lab reasons, just to pull back one result. I don't want to pull back 100,000 records. I just need one for right now. Now, what I want to do here is I want to utilize this second line here. What this line is saying is, or more appropriate, let's go through our scenario here. Imagine you are in a SOC and keep it simple. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, I think this IP is suspicious. This IP 84.112 is suspicious. That doesn't mean they're malicious, but we see them doing some odd behavior. Whatever it might be, logging in multiple times from different locations, whatever, but you have reason to believe that IP is potentially, bad. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and utilize this line here. It's actually 2 lines in the way it cuts and pastes, but it's essentially 1 line in the query. This is a lookup table, but instead of looking up the geographical information, we're going to go ahead and look up data security threat information. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say my threat, which is equal to 84.112. So this IP that you believe to be suspicious, take that IP and look at it against CrowdStrike's data. And from that data, don't pull back latitude and longitude. No, pull back things that are related to security, such as threat levels and actors and other stuff. So when I click start now, what I should get is a record. I should get my threat here. And what the system is telling me, or not the system, what CrowdStrike is telling me is that this IP has a low malicious confidence, meaning it's probably not malicious. It's low. It's not no malicious confidence. There is some confidence that it's malicious, but it's low. Now, conversely, if this had said high, we might want to go and blacklist this IP. We might want to, blacklist is probably a good thing to do to start with. We might want to follow that IP. We might want to do an action on it. But in this case, since it's low, we may not want to, because low is synonymous with good here. And what we can then do is start to create reports on this. So as we saw, let's see, I still have it open. I don't think I still have it open, but as we saw on this chart here, this is what's happening in this middle panel here. The system's looking at those IPs, it's deciding it's low, it's high, and then you can go ahead and say, look at the highs and do what you do with it. All right. How current is the threat intel data? Very. I was going to say, it's more frequent than 24 hours. I believe it's multiple times a day. And it might even be a real-time lookup. If Scott knows, he can jump in.
I'll chase it down.
Yeah, if you don't mind, please. But it is, well, no, it's just saying it is current isn't enough of an answer. Is that CAN dash built into CrowdStrike app or custom? Great question. Let's go ahead and figure it out together in lab 3. Sort of yes. So it is canned, but I wanted to reveal it. So, and I am sort of, I don't want to say rushing, but I do want to show this last portion. So with lab 2, I'm going to skip over the optional portions, but I wanted to show the operator. I wanted to show the CrowdStrike data. I wanted you to see it in Sumo. I wanted you to see it in the dashboard, and I think you kind of get that. So I'm going to go into lab 3, and let's go ahead and create an app or utilize an app. So lab 3, I'm really going to follow the steps here, but let's go ahead and paste them into the chat. But what we're going to use is the app catalog, and we're actually going to use an app. And I've alluded to these apps a few times today. I think I've told you apps are good, apps are important, but let's prove it to ourselves. Let's go ahead and take a look at one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Sumo, and we're going to go to the black bar on the far left. If you don't see a black bar, you might see a screen like this where you see these 3 horizontal lines, also a hamburger menu. If you click on that, that will get you the black bar. Once you have the black bar, scroll down to the app catalog and click on it. Here in the app catalog, we now see those 200 or so different apps, different dashboards and queries that we, Sumo, created and think will be helpful for you. The one we're going to utilize today is the threat intelligence app. So we're going to look specifically for threat intel quick analysis app. So we're just going to go into the app catalog, and probably easiest just to type threat intel. And then go ahead and click on the threat intel quick analysis. So what we're now looking at is what the system is about to provide us. But in order for the system to provide us all this cool stuff, these cool dashboards, we need to tell the system where our data is. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Add to Library, and we're going to give the app a name. You can keep the name that's there. You can add your initials. It doesn't really matter too much. We're a small group today, and I'll clean out the data before tomorrow's session. Actually, maybe not, but it doesn't matter if you want to put your initials or not. And then what we're going to do is we're going to utilize the source category, specifically the one that's described here, to tell the system this is where our data is. So we're now telling the system to take our lab AWS ELB data and pump it through the quick analysis, essentially is what's taking place. So we're just going to click Add to Library here. And now the system is taking the data in that source category, not referencing the data in that source category, referencing these queries and dashboards that somebody at Sumo created, and for lack of a technical phrase, smushing the two together. And what we then get is that output. And so now we can go to for example, the threat intel quick analysis overview. And now we start to get some stuff in here. Now, remember, this is test data, so some of these panels will not light up just because we don't have threats for everything. But now what we're starting to see is, of our data, over the last 15 minutes, 2,000 log lines have been scanned. 95 IPs have been found to be a threat, 91 URLs, etc. And we can go deeper on this. So, for example, we see the IP threat of just period IP threat. We can go back to the catalog, back to our app. Where is it? Over here on the left-hand side of the screen. And then we can go ahead and, for example, the IP one. Oh, why isn't it? There we go. Sorry about that. And now for the IPs, all this hopefully valuable information. Geolocation, where are those IPs in the world? the different sources. It's affecting my ELB US East 2 and US East 1 by different actors. Here it's showing some of those malicious things. Charming Kitten showing up, Carbon Spider, Wizard Spider, etc. The threat table. Here it's taking these IPs, showing us the confidence, and showing us the label. So we see this IP is actually associated with kill chain and malware rat and other scary stuff. Cool. So wanted to go through that. I know we're, like I said, rushing a little bit, but hopefully got through it. Let's go ahead and let's see. Let's just questions. What about threat intel analysis on email? So let's see. I don't know if I have great email pumping through here. Yeah, we don't really have anything in here, but what it's going to show you are, well, here's what it would show you if there was things coming through it.
Yeah, so the FAQ that I posted to the chat, about maybe 25% down, there is a sample of the different IOCs. So we have the domains, we have email. So we have the email accounts as well as the domains.
Yep.
URLs within the email, file attachment, those would have to be busted out by your email provider. I don't, so we need to actually harvest that through something like the connector for Proofpoint or one of the other email vendors.
Yep. But short answer is we can help you with it. Cool. All right, let's go back to the slides and start to wrap things up here. So let's see, we did that, we did that. Yeah, well, okay. Well, I want to learn more. So for this one, actually, I'm going to take you to this slide. What I want to just do for next steps is really send you to sumologic.com/learn/training. And what this gives you the opportunity to do is join us for our both workshops and certifications as well. So here we have a schedule. We're currently doing the modern SOC stuff. But for example, later this month, we have a search jam, a search mastery cert jam. Oof, excuse me. So certainly if you want to learn more about search mastery, this would be a great opportunity, free for you to attend. And we have classes all the time. This is our June schedule. So certainly would like to invite you to those as well.